Cameron, and today we are plugging holes that you don't want to be there anymore. So in this case, this is a guitar, I had a bridge positioned here. The front edge wasn't straight, which was really irritating me, so I've decided to straighten up and move it. But I need to plug these holes because I need to re-drill new holes in here. So there's 3 holes, and you can see I've already plugged one of them. So the issue is we need a thin round piece of dowel. This is about 3.5 millimeters, these holes. So you can't really buy it, and I want to make it out of the same timber as I've used here. The reason I do that is because I want the same density here as here, so when I'm drilling it doesn't dive into the hole when I'm drilling my new holes. Future me here just jutting in to say that there are plenty of videos on the internet how to make jigs to make dowel. If you're going to make a lot of dowel, they're the best way to go. Man, that sun's bright. But if you just need a few, like this I only need 3, by the time I make a jig I would have made the dowel plug, so it's not worth making a jig. So if that's what you want, this video is designed for just needing to make a few to get through a project. Okay, so I'm just getting a fairly sizable chisel, and we're just going to cut a piece off that looks, so it'll make it a roundabout square, so somewhere about here, say. And if I just bang that in, that should sort of split along that line. The grain's sort of lined up this way. Okay, I thought that would split already, but it didn't. Let's try it from here. There we go. Bit of weight, body weight. Alright, so now we have our little slither. So now we'll just basically get this and open up our drill till it fits in. Don't want to put too much in because we don't want to lose it. It's about there somewhere. So I've got most of it sticking out. Don't over tighten, you don't want to snap the wood. And you can see here we're just going to spin, right? So now, right, so I've got a piece of sandpaper, drill. It's just a matter of doing this. At the start, don't push down hard because it's sort of square. If you push down too hard, you'll be sort of slamming the edges in, and you might actually snap it. So just rest it on there quite gently. Actually, this timber smooth edges. And you can see from where the dust is forming, you can see where you're actually taking it off. So if it's all happening over here, then you want to tilt it down a little bit to try and get closer in here. If it's all here, then you want to tilt it up this way. Just tilt it so make sure you're sort of getting an even coverage. So it's starting to round off now. Very flat on this side still though. So it's getting rounder now, so it's starting to get more powder. So it's working more quickly now because it's not bouncing as much because we've got mostly round surfaces now. Still a bit flat on this side. So let's do a little test. I don't want to push it in too hard, I just want to do it gently, and we're still quite a bit too big. Do it, so now we'll take it out. And there we have it. This is super glue or CA glue, it's pretty thin. I'm going to put 1 drop there, just 1 drop, so that can work down the bottom and the sides. And then we're just going to coat the piece of dowel or the stick or whatever you want to call it itself. It's just a thin coating all the way around. I don't want, the reason I'm using CA glue and not wood glue is because glue takes up room, and I've made this to be a fairly tight fit. If I use wood glue, it might not go in. I'm just using a very light hammer to hammer that in, and that's in. And there you go. Now you can see why that one looks like that. And I just got to leave that to dry. Won't take too long, super glue. We'll make the other one and then we'll cut them off. Just position the camera on the other side this time in case there was something blocking the view last time. So put a dot of glue on the actual hole, and I'm going to just coat this, just a thin coating of glue. This sort of glue this is quite thin glue anyway, and that should be all we really need. The glue doesn't have to take up any space at all. Okay, I'm hammering this in. I am wearing safety goggles. So Ben at Crimson Guitars tells a story that he was hammering something in, that's all the way in, with super glue, and the super glue squirted out, hit him in the eye, and he had to go to hospital. So, don't do that. Got myself a piece of paper here. I just noticed that the glue is coming out of that hole a little bit, so there was not much room, which is fine, but if I get that glue off with paper, it means I don't have to chisel it off later. So I'm just going to wipe that off a little bit. Should always have a piece of paper when you're using super glue anyway, in case you get it on your fingers. You don't want your fingers to stick together, so you might need to just quickly rub it off. Alright, now we're just going to cut the plugs off. I'm hoping I don't obscure this too much. Now the chisel, it's flat on this side, which is great if you have a flat surface, but because this is set down, I can't get it exactly flat. So I'm going to use the other end on the on here, just get it so it feels level, and then we're just going to come in and just going to slice it a little bit first, rather than trying to push hard through it. Of course, I have to be careful not to push off and hit the top of my guitar and wreck it, although I have already wrecked this one a little bit. Ordinarily I would be trying to push not this way, probably more this way. I probably can still do it. You've got to make sacrifices when you're filming. Now I could probably just snap these off, because and then cut the rest off. Yeah, so if you push through, the trouble with pushing through is that once it snaps, you go whoof, and you can go right across your work and wreck it. Whatever it is that, whatever your surface is. So I'm trying to instead slide along it. I'm trying to cut it that way. It could well be that this chisel is not sharp enough. If you don't have a chisel, you could use that sharp knife that I showed at the start, and just run it, or a razor blade, or one of those sharp knives, and just keep running along the edge. It is incredibly strong along the grain. Like, it's the strongest timber I have ever seen along grain. It's amazing how strong it is. It makes very good acoustic guitar tops for that reason. Alright, so there you go. That's pretty flat actually. Just takes a bit of time is the thing. Because the timber, it's the same timber, the plug doesn't look too bad if you had to do it for looks. But because that's end grain and this is not end grain is on here, they don't match even though it's the same timber. If you want it to be an exact match, then what you would probably do is put a thin, hammer this plug all the way in and use something thin to hammer it further in. So you need a shorter plug, hammer it in further than the top, so there's a little bit of a dint there, and then you would get a piece of this timber and have the grain running exactly the same way. Use face timber matcher and put a little tiny plug on top of that so that it would match the timber if you want it to be unnoticeable. But you can't do that for the whole plug, because like I said, if you have the grain running that way, it'll just snap, and it won't work as a plug. It'll snap while you're making it actually. So you could only use the exact same grain direction if you're putting a little piece on the top of the whole thing. Hope that helps you if you've got to do that. Alright, all finished, nice and flat. It's not sanded, it's just rough, but you can't really feel that they're there other than the fact that I'm going over end grain. So yeah, there's our plugs, and we can re-drill now without having to stress about it.